So I'd like to talk about something very, very important for a quick second. I didn't leave Remax because I was failing. And ironically, when I was at Remax, I was actually having one of the best years in real estate of my life, of my career. And that's kind of what made me start to question everything. Because after one of my strongest years, I looked back and I realized that the thousands of dollars I spent were spent just to maintain my business. Desk fees, franchise fees. I mean, you name it. There's a fee for everything at this point, right? Not to include your MLS dues and whatnot, so on and so forth. And the harder that I worked, the more I started asking myself, where is all this money really going? And I felt for the other agents because I wasn't a top producer. I was a top producer maybe for like one quarter, right? I felt for these guys that were doing multiple top producing roles. They're putting so much into this company, they're putting so much into this business, into this franchise, right? But it's like, for what? Where is this money going? One of the gentlemen still paid for an office that was present, right? On top of all the other monthly dues and fees that were associated with this. Now, before I continue on, I want to make something very, very clear. I am very, very grateful for being at Remax, and I'm grateful for all the other brokerages that I've experienced because I've been with companies like Keller Williams and EXP and recently Remax and other local brokerages. But it all that got me to where I am today, and I'm very grateful for that. But every move that I made, I was generally searching for alignment. It wasn't about hype. It wasn't about popularity. I needed alignment. I needed felt like what I was doing was on the right trajectory. I was searching for technology that actually worked. I was very interested in tech, right? That looked good beyond presentations because it's very easy to make a presentation and showcase this new, CRM or what have you associated with this company, right? And for it to actually be practical in the day to day. I needed a system that was going to be used daily and not just to showcase or be used primarily for like onboarding. I wanted infrastructure that genuinely helped me grow my business because the reality is this: the industry has changed, right? Marketing has changed, consumers have changed, media has changed, and attention spans have changed. But a lot of brokerages, they still feel stuck. They still feel like they're operating in 2012, 1980s to some of the ones that I know locally. And that disconnect started becoming very impossible to ignore because one of the things that really stood out during my tenure at one of these traditional franchise models was that agents were really only celebrated when the market is up. But what about when the market slows down? You still have to pay your franchise, your monthlies, your MLS, right? Let's throw in the quarterlies. Let's throw in your websites, your marketing, your everything, right? You still carry all that weight. And over time, it starts to add up, and it started to feel less personal. And like individuality slowly disappeared. I remember this one Christmas, I still can't really believe it, right? Thank God. This was kind of like the cherry on top. But during this one Christmas, agents were given branded gifts, which is really cool, right? Considered a branded gift. But it was branded to the brokerage, not for the individual agent, right? It was branded for the company. And I know it sounds like I'm not grateful for it. I mean, that's not the case. I really am. I'm also extremely grateful for what it helped me start to think because something about that moment really stuck with me. It really represented something bigger. It felt like the agents that were there helping build this brand were only building the brand without actually building themselves. And I mean that in the most respectful way possible because these guys were doing the hard work. They were building their career, right? But they weren't building their own brand. And I started having questions and conversations about this, not from bitterness, not from anger, but from a genuine heart because I felt that this industry was shifting and I could see newer models adapting faster. I could see things happening outside of the four walls of the office. And it just didn't make sense because I could see these modern systems outperforming the traditional structures that this place had. I could see agents wanting more freedom, better tech, better collaboration, and better scalability. And I remember saying to one of the individuals there is that this business model just does not make sense anymore. It doesn't. I can't believe that it was still happening. And I wanted to provide solution. I wanted to provide an opportunity for growth, right? And then something actually kind of shocked me about this whole situation. I went ahead and I decided to make the shift to Real, right? And less than a month after I made this shift, Real acquired Remax at a global scale. And I just sat there thinking, wow, right? Like the shift wasn't coming. It was already happening. We were at the precipice of it. And now let me say this clearly. I didn't join Real for the hype. To be honest, like I didn't really see much going on. It was essentially one of the only brokerages that I hadn't tried yet, but it was a brokerage that I had kind of had in the back of my mind. And I should have made the switch 2 years prior, to be honest, because it was already kind of grabbing my attention. You'd seen it here and there, right? But again, I didn't join it for the hype. I joined it because it felt intentional. Once I got inside and I saw everything that was presented, the technology made sense, the infrastructure made sense, the collaborations made sense. Work hard, be kind. What a business model, what a business vision in the whole sense to where you have the capability to offer assistance or to be assisted by anybody that's present within the brokerage, right? I felt like this brokerage was designed where agents are going instead of trying to pressure the brokerage to preserve where the industry used to be, right? And for the first time in a long time, I felt aligned. I felt like I finally belonged somewhere, not just as an agent, but as someone who believes that the industry is entering a completely different era, an era that's driven by technology, by media, by branding, by systems, adaptability, and specifically ownership, right? Because again, you are your brand. When people think real estate, they need to think you. They need to think your face. You need to become synopsis to it. And I wasn't getting that anywhere else. In fact, a lot of the other places I was at, they were like, you cannot change the brand structure. You cannot change the marketing. You cannot change XYZ. This is who we are. People know our name. And I was like, well, what about me? Who do I become? Do I just become another cog in the wheel, right? What happens 4 or 5 years from now when XYZ happens and I want to make a shift, right? Like at this point, no one knows me. They only know so-and-so because of the brand, right? But I wanted to be the brand. And so this video isn't me telling agents to leave their brokerage or that there's something wrong with their brokerage or whatever, right? Fill in the blank. That's not the point. The point is this. Ask harder questions. Is your brokerage helping you grow? Or are you simply maintaining the system? Because loyalty matters. Yes, it does. And be loyal to your broker. For sure, they've done a lot for you. But vision matters too. And the agents who recognize where the industry is going, if they can recognize that early on, those are the agents who will be able to thrive in the future. So I ask you this question, agents, realtors, what matters more to you today? Is it a brand name? Or is it an infrastructure that actually helps you grow? Become identified, guys. Become a brand. Because the way social media is working, the way this platform is working, the way all this is working, it's all about individuality. Create yourself into where you need to become, what you've already been destined to become. You're not just a cog, right? You are your own entity. You are your own brand. Live on it. If you have any questions, you have any comments, feel free to leave them in the section below. I'm open for conversation. If you have any questions, you want to know what it looks like on the inside of Real, I'm here to help you. Because one of the things that I really want to nail on, right, to hit on, is you don't know what you don't know. And you cannot make an educated decision without being educated. Same thing we tell our clients, same thing we tell our consumers, right? So before you totally bash the idea, take 30 minutes, sit down with me. Let me show you what Real is, what the real opportunity is, what the real model is. And you make a decision. You see it for yourself. You see firsthand, hey, this is interesting. This is something that I want to know more about. By all means, I would love to have the conversation with you. And if you say, hey, not for me, no problem. I'm still going to be your friend. I'm still going to help you find a buyer for your listing. And God, I hope you help find a buyer for one of my listings, And I really hope you still get the opportunity to collaborate, right? The whole thing just comes back to the sense of like, who do you want to be? Do you want to be a brand? Do you want to work for a brand, right? Do you want better tools and tech that's actually available that's going to help the industry, right? And help you as an agent, right? And give you capabilities that, quite frankly, none of these other brokerages have been able to crack down on. Because I remember being at Keller Williams and them offering this program, and it wasn't there. I was like, I can see what you guys are trying to do, but this ain't it yet, right? Man, that must have been 5 years at this point, right? So I say this in the sense that those companies, those brokerages had to find those tech. They had to work those bugs out because it gave opportunity to brokerages like Real to be able to figure out what was working, what wasn't, and fix that. Same thing with Remax. Same thing with EXP. You find things that are working, you fine tune it, and you make it adaptable for not only what's happening, but for what will come. And I feel that's what Real is about. They're able to create and integrate for the future, not for the past, not for what's present, but for what's to come. So if you're an agent who's looking to stay on the precipice of where the industry is going, let's have a chat, guys. I'm here for you. Y'all have a great day. Stay well, stay blessed.